You're listening to the Vibrant Vision Podcast, a podcast designed to help you get clarity, increase your confidence, and cultivate the most important connections so you can have the impact you were created to make. I'm your host, Amanda Kerrigan. Now let's get to making that vibrant vision a reality. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Vibrant Vision Podcast. Last week, we talked about how to set the right goals in 2022. And I heard from a lot of you that, I really want to set the right goals, but I have this one goal that I've wanted to achieve for a long time. And I just can't seem to pull the trigger. I can't seem to make it happen. And to be honest, I don't even want to set this goal anymore. I want to set a different goal. And that's what I want to talk about today, because often those goals that won't go away, that keep nagging at the back of your brain, are the ones that you really need to set. So I just want to say right now, right up front, I totally understand. I have had a goal to launch a podcast since I think fall of 2017. And as I mentioned, that was not the right time, but it was still a goal. It was still a dream that I had to launch a podcast and to be able to make an impact for myself and my clients and for my power partners, the people that I serve alongside in my business. And so that was a big dream that I had. And to be honest, I just kept putting it off. I would set the goal, but then I wouldn't achieve it. And then at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter, I would just end up disappointed again. And it's so easy. It's almost too easy to get discouraged. Discouraged is actually the lack of courage. And it's so easy to just say, I'm going to focus on something else. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this shiny thing, or just to veg out. I mean, I am the queen of vegging out. And that's something that I've really been mindful of lately. And it's also easy to say, it's really just not that important. It's not that important anymore. It's not something I need to achieve. It's not something that really is going to make a difference. But here's the question. Why is that goal popping up for you? Really explore that. Think about it. Why is this popping up for you? And then what do we do when these goals keep popping up? Last week, I gave you quite a few steps. This week, I only have 3. So what do we do? There are 3 steps when our goals just say, me, pick me, and they're popping up all the time. So the number one thing we need to do is recognize that there's a reason this goal won't be silenced. And it's probably, not always, but it's probably a unique calling on your life. This comes up more often for my clients than anything else. What's going on? Well, this is what I feel is my calling, or this thing will enable me to pursue my calling and do something that's really, really important for me and my family. For example, I had a client and he wanted to run a marathon, and it was really interesting that he said, this will really empower my message within my company. It'll give me better leadership of myself, and then I'll be a better leader on my team. So really just don't ignore what is going on there. And Dr. Seuss said, there's no one alive who is youer than you. And it's one of my favorite quotes, first of all, because it's kind of silly. And it really resonates, because there's no one alive who can do what only you are called to do in this life. No one can build that business or write that book or start that ministry, or, in my case, no one is going to play the song that I was working on last night just the same way I am. Are there going to be people who play it better? Absolutely. Yes. But no one is going to have the same interpretation I do with this song. And that's something that we need to remember, is that our unique secret sauce, we add flavor to this world. We add something that people need. So remember, no one has your story or your perspective or your experience. And maybe the reason that this goal comes up for you is it either is your calling or it's a significant piece of your calling. So number 1, recognize why this goal keeps popping up. Number 2, acknowledge the past. So often we're like, new year, new possibilities, new everything. 2021 doesn't count. It does count. Our past, whether we like it or not, sometimes shapes us. And if we don't acknowledge it, we'll be like Jacob Marley dragging our chains around and bringing our baggage into 2022. We don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want to bring my baggage into this year. And so, really, the biggest thing is acknowledge what happened. What happened? What disappointments happened? What things did you really wish you were acknowledged for but weren't? I got asked this question by one of my coaching colleagues the other day, and I was like, well, that's kind of a weird question, right? Because I'm not one that really needs recognition. But then I thought about all the things that I was like, wow, I really wish I had acknowledged myself. And one thing that I really think as we acknowledge our past is that it will not stop us. Like your past does not get to determine your future. So my friend, her daughter's like 5 now, but we were hanging out one day and she was learning to walk and she kept falling down. You know, little kids, they just fall down and they don't have very far to go, so they bounce and they come back up. And she would kind of stumble and then she'd get back up and she'd pull herself up on the coffee table. And never once did she act like, well, I failed, so I think I'm just going to stay down this time. She wanted to walk. She knew it was her destiny to walk. Like most of us, it is. She pulled herself up and now, you know, she plays soccer and she runs. But sometimes we just have to become like little kids. Like just because we fell down doesn't mean we'll fall down again. Just because we failed last year and the year before and the year before that does not mean that we are going to fail this year. So I really want you to think about, what disappointments did you experience? What do you wish could have been different? What stopped you? What got in the way? What obstacles do you want to break down and bust through this year? To process this, journaling is one of my favorite tools that I use with my coaching clients because the process of writing engages parts of our brain that just talking or thinking don't engage. It also provides a record. I've been journaling for, goodness, almost 6 years now. And when I look back, I see the person that I was, and I just have so much compassion for her. She was doing the best that she could, and life was really hard. And that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. If you do find yourself needing professional help, I really encourage you to get a counselor, get a therapist, engage with that professional help so that you can come into 2022 strong. Mental health is a major issue right now in our country. There are things that have happened in the last 2 years that are unprecedented. In all of society, we've never had a pandemic like this one. So if that's something that you really feel you need, I really encourage you, find a therapist if you need help processing your past. So now that we've recognized why this goal keeps popping up and we've processed our past, this is the hardest step. Step 3 is let go of the excuses that held you back. Maybe you had some obstacles. Maybe you had some excuses. We all make excuses. I tried to make an excuse yesterday when I outlined this podcast. I don't have time. I had 15 minutes to spare when I was writing this section. And then this morning I was like, well, I don't have this tool, or I don't have, this perfect outline, so I'm going to skip it. No. It is time. It is time to let go of those excuses. It's really time to get honest about what's holding us small and keeping us from achieving our biggest goals. Maybe you think what you have to say doesn't matter. I've thought that. So many of you told me on my last podcast that what I had to say mattered and it made a difference. And it's hard to admit that we have excuses. It's hard to admit that the responsibility lies with us. But if we're willing to take radical responsibility for what we have done in the past, then we are able to be responsible for what happens in the future and not let life just happen to us. And that's really what is going to allow you to achieve these goals. So what is your excuse? One of my clients came to me and she had been really struggling with writing her book. And one of her excuses was someone else has a similar story and a huge platform. And I just can't compete with that. I just can't compete with that. She has An incredible story, a story that people need to hear, a story that will inspire people. And she's letting someone else's success overshadow her own potential. So I just want you to remember, no one else can tell your stories or deliver your message or serve the people that you're called to serve or run that marathon or do whatever goal you have this year, quite like you. And no one else can do this for you. No one else can achieve this goal. So maybe you're too tired. Set a reminder on your phone to turn off Netflix and get to bed earlier so you can get up and do what needs to be done. I had to do this. I record this podcast before I go to my day job. Right now, it is 7 o'clock in the morning, and I have been up for a little over 2 hours because I know that it has to be done. Every morning, I drag myself out of bed and I'm like, I'm too tired to do this. That's a lie. Recognize it for an excuse. So I realized that this podcast may have been hard for you to hear. It was not easy to record. It was something that just came straight out of my heart, something that probably wasn't on my original podcast plan, but it was something that I really wanted you to hear today. That you have the power to achieve your biggest goals in 2022. You know, I want you to know that I'm in the thick of this too. I have big goals that I haven't achieved in the past, and I really had to process those disappointments and those excuses and say, no, this year is the year. So I want you to know I'm right here with you. We're doing the thing together. And I want to encourage you. It takes tremendous courage to revisit a goal that you failed at, that you thought is over, and to say, this is the year. It's going to happen this year. But I want to encourage you. This goal is part of your calling. If it keeps popping up, pray through it. Ask what you are supposed to do with this goal, because it's likely part or all of your calling. And it's too easy to say it's too hard. But I want to encourage you. You have everything you need right now to achieve this goal. You have resources. You have people who are willing to encourage you. Find those people. Make that community. And if you feel like you need more support to achieve this goal, I'm going to drop a link to my calendar in the show notes. You are more than welcome to book a complimentary call with me, and we'll talk about this, and we will discover your next steps to achieve this goal, because I really want you to know that you're not alone. This is something that I'm super passionate about, making sure that people live their calling with clarity, confidence, and building connections. That's my purpose, and that's what I want to help you do today. So go ahead and book that call. If you enjoyed this podcast, if this podcast helped you, encouraged you, would you just share it with someone? Maybe you know someone else who has a goal that they want to give up on. If you could just share this with one person, I would be so incredibly grateful. And next week, I am going to be back with another podcast, really connecting your vision to your goals and your goals to your actions so that you can keep moving forward, and so that you're not using the hashtag resolution fail on social media. I hate that hashtag. I really want to abolish that hashtag, and I want to do it one person at a time. So join me next week. I'm super excited for that podcast. And thank you. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of the Vibrant Vision community.